Welcome to our series, Dyin,
Cryin,
and Lyin on Two Luckies,
the podcast. This is a series where we rewatch Little House on the Prairie, a show that we loved when we were kids, and we give our perspective on it as adults.
As adults, and I must say, watching it as an adult has been very different.
It's been extremely different, and we found out that their plots tend to have three main categories. They are either dying,
They're crying,
or they are
lying.
lying. And we figured out that they have 2 out of the 3 categories every episode. So if you want to know what it's like to sit in the car with us and have us tell you a story with categories, you're about to find out. So buckle up. Here we go. For Two Luckies, the podcast presents Dyin,
Cryin,
and
Lyin.
Lyin. Hey, the part 2 of the recap.
Welcome to part 2.
Woohoo!
And part 2 is going to start off with episode 12, His Father's Son.
His father's son, and this is where the newly minted Edwards family comes into play. And John Jr., who is the adopted son of Mr. Edwards, and Grace, who is now Grace Edwards, ends up having a very big misunderstanding with Mr. Edwards because Mr. Edwards has yet to tell any of the children that he's unable to read or write. And it causes a massive, potentially deadly circumstance for Mr. Edwards because of it.
They leave you hanging on your edge of your chair because is it going to be a trifecta for categories? Is it not?
I mean, he was on the edge of dying there for a while. It was a really interesting episode, and it was very heavy topic, but it hit our categories, and
it was an episode that ended up with I'd say a happy ending.
It ended up with
circumstances.
It ended up with a good thing. Mr. Edwards was able to recover because he is somebody who lived and grew up in the woods, and apparently even Doc Baker agreed that's how we knew he was going to be okay, because there was no Doc Baker-itis. He was able to directly look at everybody and tell them the news, and we knew that meant that Mr. Edwards was in the clear. So that's how we did that episode.
All right, so you got to check that one out. It's definitely had some high points in it, and it's going to leave you biting your nails.
It definitely will.
And that brings us to episode 13, which was called The Talking Machine, and that one was a whiz-banger.
That was another one where Laura and Nellie were both interested in the same boy, and I do believe that this is the only time that we see this boy. Like, they have a tendency to give characters.
Yes.
I think this is the only time we see him. If they bring him back as a character later on, we're unaware of it at this point.
But we definitely had some big time lying and crying.
Oh, we had lying and crying, and Laura was crying because Nellie had done something to embarrass her. And thank you again, Nellie, because she kept things going. I mean, she created a circumstance that everybody in school was involved in this whole thing at one point.
Yes, and I gotta say, thank you, writers, because this is 13 episodes now that we've kind of gone over, and they did not disappoint.
Well, I would say In the Big Inning was the one that, it was a good episode. It was a great episode, but for our categories, we were like, wah, wah. Other than that, we have been so far so good. 2 out of 3 at least. 2 out of 3 of our categories in every episode, with the exception of that one little one. And it was a good episode. It just, for our categories.
Yeah, but it was right after that episode, all of a sudden we had a bunch of trifectas.
Oh my gosh, they were dancing on the buttons for us.
Thank you, writers.
Yay! Next, we had episode 14, The Pride of Walnut Grove. And this is where Mary qualified for a state competition for math. What was it? I forgot what the test was based on.
I believe it was for math.
And then Ma ends up going with her on the train and leaving Charles home. And Laura is running the house as the oldest female in the house. And she is trying to do everything that Ma is doing. And that is where we start seeing the construction of the brand new Charles season 2 shirt.
The season 2 shirt, it was like a cream color, almost white shirt. And
yeah, it has no pattern on it.
And I think it made a couple of appearances later on.
Well, Laura actually tries to finish. Ma is in the beginning trying to fit it on to Charles, and then Laura, when she's trying to do all of Ma's chores, and after she puts Carrie to bed, tries to sit down and sew on his shirt to get some kind of progress with it, and starts falling asleep in the chair. So that was a really big one. There was definitely crying in there.
Oh.
And I feel like there was lying.
Oh, there was definitely lying in there,
yeah.
because
I think everybody was healthy though. I think that was one of those ones where it was just 2 out of the 3 categories.
Again, it was one of those episodes that ended up with a happy ending when really it could have gone the other way, but hey, give him an attaboy.
Yeah, they did a good job. Next episode was episode 15, and that was A Matter of Faith. And
I remember that one from being a kid.
Ma went through a very, very difficult thing on her own after the entire family went ahead on a trip that they were going to be taking, and she was staying home to bake pies, to raise money. They were trying to do something to pay for a church or to get a church started or something like that. And she stayed home, and she ended up having a cut that led her to a very serious medical condition that she ended up with her knowledge of plants and the things that you're supposed to do. And
she ended up saving her own life.
She ended up saving her own life. And there was a lot of opportunity for them to find out that she was having some kind of medical issue, but for whatever reason, I guess that makes the drama of it, they missed seeing her or finding her, and she was in a very serious situation. And that was another attaboy to Charles, because when he realized that she did not show up with Reverend Alden because she was supposed to ride in with them with the pies, when she did not show up, he was hi-yapping that team over there. He almost turned that wagon over. He was going so fast coming around those turns, but he came in just in time and found her, and thankfully was able to get Doc Baker involved. But oh my gosh, that was a serious situation for her.
And we still had 2 categories, possibly 3.
Well, sometimes they really like to get close.
On the edge,
they like to get close to the edge on that Dyin category. So they have it hanging in the air like a little specter, but they just leave it there kind of lingering, but they don't exactly like employ it, but it's lingering around the corner.
But it ended on a high note.
It did, and she lived, thankfully, and everybody was, it was a big deal, that episode. I mean, that could have been really a devastating thing for their family, and she pulled through.
She did. Thank you, writers.
Yay! So episode 16 was the runaway caboose, and oh my gosh! So now this was another one of the Edward children, except Carl. He is the middle child that was adopted by Mr. Edwards. I almost said Mr. and Mrs. Edwards, which is correct to say, but Mr. Edwards and Grace. They had Carl as the middle child, and he causes a whole bunch of trouble that ends up getting a caboose of a train disconnected, and they are now needing to be saved. Him, Laura, and Mary needing to be saved from this caboose that is racing down the train tracks towards disaster. And there was a lot of horse riding in this one. And
definitely had a little bit of overtones of Bonanza.
It really did give that Bonanza vibe. They were riding those horses all over the place, and Mr. Edwards was going in this direction. And that was one of those ones where you really realize how difficult it was to communicate back then, and how limited their communication options were. Even though they had the telegram, somebody had to be sitting there to listen to it, and he was missing it.
That was one of those episodes where it was a great episode to watch. It was action-packed, but as far as the categories go, we did get 2, but it was a little light.
We did get 2. It was a little bit light because it was a lot of tense sequences where they were just rolling down the tracks, and it's a little hard to get categories.
It's a great episode.
It is. Then we had episode 17, Troublemaker.
Ooh, Troublemaker. That's with Mr. Applewood.
Where I called these kind of school employees suck a lemon, and I apologize if you know someone who's like that. They look like they've just sucked on a lemon perpetually all the time, and they only have a sour face to give you. And this Mr. Applewood was it. And he decided that Laura was his favorite person to punish in the class. And it caused, Charles really came through on this one.
He definitely got an attaboy. We have to
give a major, go Charles on this one. He came in and saved all of those children from this very, very over-the-top, slightly disturbed disciplinarian. I mean, this guy was set on discipline, and no matter how painful the methods, he was hitting them with rulers. And I mean, he made Laura's life very, very difficult, and she tried to tell them, but when Charles did find out about it,
oh, he took action.
He took action.
This is one of those episodes that kind of ties back to the earlier ones of the season where we have an antagonist, and again, it's got to go back to the Olsens.
You know,
gotta go back to the Olsens.
Yes, definitely helped push this episode along. So thank you, Olsens, and thank you, writers, because you remember that the Olsens drive the show a lot of the time.
They drive it.
And that was something for season 2 that we were surprised about. I think for season 1, how few episodes the Olsens seemed to be in compared to season 2. They were in a lot more episodes in season 2.
We did okay on the categories. We, again, 2 out of 3 that I remember of it. Not so many of them that we had in a row, but it was definitely a fun episode.
Well, we got to see a side of Charles that
we rarely
up until
see.
this point we did not. I think this was the first time we got to see him get physical with another adult. I mean, he took that guy, he had that pointing stick and he snapped it over his knee and he pushed him up against the building. I mean, he was definitely upset. He even said, "You should be happy that or something to the effect of,
you should thank my wife. She told me to be nice to you."
Yeah, I mean, this was him being nice, but he was very, very upset. The next one was episode 18, The Long Road Home.
The Long Road Home. I think that's the one that had Louis Gossett Jr. as a co-star.
Yes, and they were doing an extraordinarily dangerous job because Charles and Mr. Edwards were trying to sell their grain, and they ended up with a bumper crop at the same time as everyone else in their immediate region, and they had so much of whatever was wheat or corn. They had so much of whatever crop they were trying to sell that the price went down so low that they weren't able to pay back the money.
Right, Mr. Cash on the barrel.
They weren't able to pay back the money for the seed that they had purchased to grow it, so they ended up taking a job that gave them $100, which back then was like an incredible amount of money, for 2 weeks of very, very, very dangerous work that they did not exactly, either of them, we found out later on, tell their wives about.
No,
so
they didn't. They found out after the fact.
We knew that Carolyn didn't know that Charles was doing this dangerous thing until she received the insurance policy in the mail and the letter to leave it alone from Charles. But we found out that Grace was also uninformed about how dangerous this job was, and this was not just a simple freighting job like their wives were told. And Charles did not say goodbye to his children in this one, and that I was very, very shocked about.
Yeah, Charles gets a boo on that one.
He did.
Gotta say,
I mean, you know, but
it's a boo.
We know with hindsight, looking and watching the show, it's a lot harder to make decisions when you have to actually make the decisions. But he made a decision that we were actually shocked about, was that he did not wake up his children before he was leaving to go to a job that potentially was going to take him off the planet permanently, and he left them asleep. So we were a little shocked on that one.
Yeah, to that one, I would just have to say, do better.
Well, he did the best he could. We know he did. He came home successfully. Mr. Edwards came home successfully. And thankfully, they did okay. And that $100, they needed that money. But they also did some heavy topics in this.
Yes.
There were some heavy topics in this episode. And if you want to know what we're talking about, go watch it. Go watch it and then listen to our recap and laugh a little bit, because that's what we're here for. Give you a little laugh while we're trying to figure out whether or not we're correct that their episodes have at least 2 out of 3 of our categories. We're exploring this with you. Then we had episode 19, which was For My Lady, which was where Charles ended up getting told by Carolyn that she wanted to have more time with him, and he ends up spending time at a widow's house doing work to, in barter, get a set of nicer dishes for her. And it ended up causing a whole hullabaloo in the town. Mrs. Olsen was involved in that one. Oh boy, she got in on that one.
Oh yeah.
And she helped the story again.
That was also an episode where we missed a category.
Remember that? We went through that whole thing saying we need another category, and we had talk of Dyin the whole time. So we're rectifying it now because we really, boy, did we miss it.
We missed that
and
one.
And we were done recording it. We were like, we missed an entire category. We missed it. It was going on the whole time, and we completely, somehow, we just flew over our heads. And we thought about it later, and there was nothing we could do about it. Then we had episode 20, which was Centennial.
That one surprised me. I got to be honest. The topic matter that they were discussing, that really surprised me. And the whole attitude that the town seemed to take, not the children, the adults.
The adults were
the country,
very, very upset.
About the country in general. I mean, the country was 100 years old, and all of the problems that seemed to all land on them within a few days' time. And next thing you know, it's like everybody's looking to revolt.
They went from planning a party to being so upset about the tax bills that they had gotten for the expanded roads and things that were going on at that time. They were trying to completely cancel the centennial celebration. Mary sewed an entire flag by herself. It was a full-size flag that she sewed. The children were really trying to do something for the centennial, and then Miss Beadle ended up trying to do something within the class, and that was another episode where finally the adults came around and things looked up, but boy, were they like down in the dumps.
We could just say that episode ended with the Rockets' red glare.
It did. Then we had episode 21, which was Soldier's Return. That was a trifecta.
Trifecta on that one. That was a sad one.
That was a sad one.
Very
Mrs.
heavy
Whipple's
topic.
son ended up passing away in that episode after he returned from the war, and there was a lot of dying category in that episode.
A lot of categories there.
There was a lot of flashbacks.
And a lot of blame being pointed at Doc Baker especially. And if you want to know what we're talking about, check out the episode.
Yeah, check out the episode. Yeah.
But
I wasn't seeing it that way, but yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he had a point.
Well, he was trying. The
up.
point he was trying to make was that certain medications have a quality to them that make some people, or make a lot of people, so that they need to continue taking this thing. And he was trying to get Mrs. Whipple's son away from it and trying to work through it with him. And Mrs. Whipple's son ended up robbing Doc Baker's office for the medicine that he actually wanted to get that he wasn't allowed to get when Doc Baker was in charge of it. Yeah. But it ended up being, it was a really serious episode.
That was definitely not an episode that ended on a high note.
That one was
serious subject matter.
A very serious subject, and it was a little difficult to do because it was a serious subject, but we still try. This is a fictional show based on real people, and some of the people in the show were composites of people that were in the book series that Laura Ingalls Wilder actually wrote. But a lot of these characters are fictional characters or based on real people but fictionalized in that way.
But so they hit the categories.
They hit our categories. Boy, do they hit our categories. And then the last episode of season 2 was episode 22, and that was called Going Home. And this was another one. This is the reason why I said that I feel like we had 2 crops in the same season, because Mr. Edwards had gone with Charles to, I forgot what town they went to go sell their grain. And that's how they ended up transporting that dangerous oil.
I think it was Mankato.
Maybe it was Mankato,
yeah,
but they ended up doing that dangerous transportation job. And then now this one, a big storm comes through. They had a tornado that landed like almost only on their farm
just
for some
on top
reason.
Of the Chaz farm.
It left town intact. Everyone in town seemed like they had no idea anything had happened. He was devastated. His entire crop was lost. We're not sure where he was in the growing of it, but this was definitely the second crop of season 2 that they mentioned. And he was so upset about it that he decided he was going to bring everybody home, and he was going to go back to what he said was his home, which was the big woods. But the actual Charles Ingalls, I think, was born in New York.
Yeah, Cuba, New York is where he's originally from. The real Chaz. Story Chaz, I guess he came from the big woods.
So Story Charles came from the big woods, and we call him Chaz because if you watch the pilot episode, when Ma is screaming as he's almost getting swept under the wagon by
as they're
water,
trying to ford a river, she screams out,
Chaz! So we have been calling him Chaz ever since. We are at the end of season 2, still calling him Chaz. And Chaz finds out after a whole bunch of stuff that when he finally was able to get over being upset enough to look around, that everyone really did want to stay in Walnut Grove. They had a life there, they had community, they had school, they had friends, and they had done something that they really wanted to stay. And then he realized that instead of going home, he already was home the entire time.
And that wrapped up season 2. And I do know this, season 3 will be coming in the future. Season 3 has a lot of good episodes.
Season 3 has good episodes. And
I want to say...
I'm wondering, though, if they're going to hit our categories, because sometimes what we remember as a good episode from our childhood is a little slow on the categories.
I know some of them will, but it seemed like season 3 was on TV a lot.
Maybe it was in the reruns or syndication more frequently.
But definitely make sure you come back when we get into season 3 and start off that whole series, because it's going to be a big one.
And the release date for season 3 is a to be determined. We are hoping to figure out when that will be, but right now this is the end of season 2, the end of our second part of our recap for season 2.
Woo-hoo!
And you stayed, and we appreciate it, and we thank you very much. If you're listening, hello. And we found out we have people in different parts of the world that we had no idea were going to listen to our podcast, and we're happy that you found us. And if you know somebody who you think would like our podcast, please let them know, and let us know if you like it.
Yeah, let everyone know.
Let everybody know. And we thank you. We thank you for listening to us. And this is the end of our season 2. This is officially the end of our season 2 recap.
Thanks for staying with us.
Thanks for staying.
And that concludes this episode on Dyin,
Cryin,
and Lyin on Two Luckies.
Two Luckies,
the podcast.
We release these weekly, and there's a whole bunch of them out already, so go check them out.
We'll see you the next time.
We're out.
Two Luckies, the podcast.
Two Luckies, the podcast. Two Luckies, the podcast.